How's it going, guys? Got another one for you. So today, sort of, sort of like that video I made on outcome independence. I wanted to talk about a thought I've had, or a thought I previously had, instead of a book or a piece of literature or a thinker or anything like that. It's funny, I was going through, I take a lot of notes on my phone. I take a lot of notes and I carry like this small, sort of like I don't know what it is, like an A6 notebook with me a lot of places. And the phone's a little bit easier, but anytime I sort of have a cool thought, anytime I sort of notice something or notice myself thinking about something, I try and write it down, right? Because you never know when, in a few years' time, that thought could have been, something that, I don't know, maybe made you take on a new direction in life. Or, there's often we think that, the person that we become, or the person that we are, is a culmination of like these huge life events, right? Where what we sometimes fail to realize is that I think sometimes it's the minute, small, day-to-day choices, or passing thoughts, or things that might seem sort of trivial, that actually end up having the greatest effect on us, right? And an example I like to use sometimes is, especially if it's something so close to you, or so close to who you are as a person, your identity. If you have a boat, right, for instance, if you have a boat and you're sort of trying to get to a destination that's 1,000 miles away, right? If you start heading straight to the destination, right, you're bearing straight towards it. Let's say your bearing is 0 degrees. Even the smallest change in heading, right? Even if you go from 0 to 1.5 degrees, or 0 to 2 degrees, that 2-degree change so early, or that 2-degree change, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, ends up getting you to a completely different final location, right? And if you take into consideration that you're making thousands, if not tens of thousands of those small decisions every day, I think it's important to realize what sort of large effects those small decisions could end up having on who you become, right? Because I think, again, we always like to think that, we're the culmination of these epic, great, spectacular moments, when really we're sort of who we are after our day-to-day choices, right? If you choose to eat well every day, you're going to be, someone that eats well, and someone that, values health. If you work out just a little bit every day, you're going to be in shape. It's not about going hard in the gym one day. It's about, working out a little bit every day and being active every day, right? Anyways, total side note, but because I write stuff down, I periodically sort of go back and I look at my old notes and I sort of see, oh, do I still think this way? Do I still have this idea? Oh, what was I trying to sort of grasp at here, or talk about there? And I found one, and this actually made me really happy. And it's cool. I feel like it's cool that I found it at this moment, because currently I'm going through something, and I'm sort of helping one of my closest friends through something. And I'm trying to, it's funny because I'm trying to sort of help and guide and give advice as a third person, because often, when you're in the midst of something, when you're going through a decision or a problem, you can have these like sort of blinders on that you're not aware of, and it usually takes having someone come in from the outside, right, a third party that can sort of look down on the battlefield and sort of see, oh, well, it's not that bad. You have this out, you have this in, oh, well, you could send troops around this way, right? But it's important to, again, ask for that help from your friends, things like that. But the note I found actually has to do with being a third person and spectating, and sometimes being in what I like to call like the passenger seat, right? So being in the passenger seat of your own life. Sometimes, not always, it's bad to be a passive actor, right, in your own life. It's your story. You should be the main guy, right? Don't get me wrong, but sometimes it is nice to sort of step outside of yourself and spectate sort of the things you do, who you are, and how you interact, and the sort of knowledge or feelings that you gain from certain experiences, because I think it can be it's important to as a form of sort of self-learning and self-teaching, and it also helps just, I think, create a better understanding of yourself, right? For yourself. Anyways, I know that was a bit of a preamble, right? But we'll get into the note. So I'll just read you guys what I wrote down. So this was about a year ago. I wrote down, so much can be seen from the passenger side. And I remember I was taking a taxi. I think I was taking like a taxi or an Uber, and I'm sitting in the back seat, and I was looking out the back seat of the Uber, and I noticed this scene right happening in front of me, and it put a smile on my face, and it sort of taught me something that I feel that I still live every day, right? So we'll get to that. So I said there was a father and a son in an old car next to me. It was maybe like an old Corolla, something like that. The father's driving, the son is leaning out of the passenger window, and he sort of like turns around and he smiles at his dad, right? And they have a little bit of music playing, I could sort of remember, and the weather was okay. It was a little bit hot, but the weather was all right. They have the windows down, dad's driving, son sort of turns around, looks back at his dad, and he's smiling, right? And then I said, you can tell the dad's happy, and he's like, there's like this air of pride, right? Like he's proud of his son. You can tell the dad's in a good mood, right? Which is always nice to see a father in a good mood, right? And then I noticed the son is wearing some sort of like this, like a racing t-shirt, you know? And he has a car on the back. It's like a Camaro or a Challenger or something like that. And it has one of those names on the back, or maybe it was on the front, a name that sort of sounds fast, right? Like McGuire or McLennan or something like that, sort of like a NASCAR sounding name. Windows are down. And then I said, in moments like these, you say to yourself, you know, be gone money, be gone fame, be gone everything that others have sought out, right? Everything that others seek, I want nothing to do with, right? Above all, I said, above all is now. And how that father probably felt in that moment, seeing his son smiling, happy, and sort of looking back at him from the passenger seat, I think that transcends any sort of material wealth, any sort of financial wealth, you know, climbing the top of a corporate ladder, achieving, you know, a crazy PR in the gym, whatever it may be, right? Publishing that book that you've been writing for years. It's that sort of moment, and I think it's small moments like that where if you can sort of isolate and sort of understand what moments like that you'd like to achieve or aspire to, I think it can help sort of indicate, or it can help inform your decision making, right? So that was the scene that I saw. But the thing that struck me in that moment, and the reason why, I'm sorry, I think I hit the microphone there. The thing that struck me in that moment, and the reason why I wanted to make this video, is that I realized had I been driving, I wouldn't have been able to witness that scene, right? Because my seat would have been ahead at the stoplight. I wouldn't have been able to look back and sort of see this beautiful moment between father and son. And so I wrote down this sort of after the note. I said, the passenger seat gives you new outlooks on the roads you constantly drive through in your day-to-day life, right? I said, if you're able to apply the same to the journey of your life in general, right? If you're able to sometimes look out the passenger window, not always feel like you have to be at the wheel, but sometimes look out the passenger window and sort of let life happen to you and sort of spectate who you are and how you sort of navigate or how you sort of dance through your life, right? What steps you take and which rhythms you follow, things like that. Being a passenger of your own travel can then open up new ideas and solutions that aren't in the driver's purview, right? So as a driver, you're very focused, right? Like let's say you have a new goal, right? You're like, oh dude, I'm gonna lose 20 pounds by September, right? You can say something like that. And then you sort of tunnel vision and you sort of lock into, okay, I gotta eat this way, I gotta train this way, I gotta be up at this time, I gotta go for runs, I gotta whatever. You're now sort of set on achieving a goal. What you might not notice is that perhaps you start eating clean and losing weight, not because you're hitting the gym every day, but because let's say you picked up a new friend and they love running. And that new friend sort of is always hitting you up, texting you like, hey man, let's get on a run, or hey man, I got these new running shoes, you know, you should get a pair, stuff like that. Maybe you're missing the fact that, you're actually really stressed out at work and you're not eating lunch at work anymore. Maybe there's too much stress, so you've been downing crazy amounts of caffeine, right? And whatever your chosen vice is. And maybe that's the reason, you know, your appetite's been stifled, and that's why you're actually losing weight, right? But if you're so goal-oriented, you sort of lose the peripheral view, right? If you're so focused on driving the car to reach the destination, you forget sometimes to look out the window and sort of appreciate the scenic route, right? So the point I wanted to make in this video is, as a human, right, I think, especially the way society has sort of, has us in like this double-bind vice grip, right, of this is what success looks like, this is what achievement looks like, this is what maturity looks like, this is what a winner looks like, this is what a loser looks like, right? Despite the forces at play, and despite, you know, whatever sort of information is constantly being shot at you and, you know, beamed into your mind, right? Despite that, I think it's important as a person to really understand yourself and to really appreciate yourself and learn to love yourself and learn to be more compassionate with yourself and sort of understand how to overcome, you know, certain challenges in your life. I think sometimes it is important to sort of take a step back, you know, take a step back and realize that, okay, how am I reacting if I was a character in a movie? What's my character sort of doing? If I was a character in a video game, you know, oh, where's this guy sort of choosing to spend his XP, right? Where's my guy sort of choosing to spend his credits, right? When you can do that sort of external third-party sort of removed assessment of yourself, again, don't dwell in that, because then you end up being sort of like a passive observer and one of those guys where it's like, oh, well, just go with the flow and just whatever. That's also not helpful. But if you can do that a few times, I think it can really help shape your direction, and I think it's just really beneficial, and I'm a big fan of that. And I try and make sure that I'm checking in with myself every now and then, right? It shouldn't also have to be like a structured thing. But to sort of wrap this up full circle, right? It's funny that I find it funny that this note sort of came up at this time again in my life, right? Because the sort of advice that I was trying to give my friend, right, to navigate, you know, whatever he's going through, is that I was trying to sort of convey the fact that I can understand a winning move or a winning play for him because I'm not him, right? Because when you're in the middle of the battle, there's like fog of war, right? Like you can't see, you're sort of just lost in it. But when you're a commander, when you're someone that's sort of detached in the drawing room, in the planning room, then you can sort of see exactly what's happening, right? And you can make more informed decisions. And so when I'm giving my friend this advice, I'm trying to tell him, you know, man, listen, I'm telling you this because I can see your situation from the bird's eye view, right? I'm removed from the happening, so I can tell you, you know, what's your best play here? What's your out, right? But sometimes you can do that for yourself, right? I don't know if it needs mental, like, I wouldn't say it's like mental, like, training, but you do need to practice it. I'd say you should practice it like a bit, because it's easy to think like, oh, well, I can just do that. I can just think third person. But thinking third person is really, it's a lot more difficult than you think, because a lot of things are automatically processed by you, right? What you eat, what you drink, what you do in your free time, right? A lot of stuff is sort of automatic, right? But if like, this is one that always catches me out, right? I catch myself out with this, but if you think yesterday, how much time did I spend on YouTube? Or how much time did I spend on TikTok or Instagram or Twitter, right? You probably don't know, like, the actual hours. Then go into screen time and check exactly how much time yesterday did you spend on this app, right? It'll probably, like, first of all, it'll probably make you upset. You'll probably feel bad about it, which is normal. It's fine, whatever. But that's what I mean. When you're doing this, like, third-person audit, realize that treat yourself almost like a child, right? Like, treat yourself like you are taking care of yourself as a child. And you're sort of understanding everything that this child does, right? Does he eat too much junk food? Does he stay up too late? Does he play too much video games and sort of doesn't study enough, right? Treat yourself like that when you're doing this audit. And then hopefully, no promises, guys, but hopefully it gives you an indication of, okay, you're doing these things well, you're doing these things, in a way that could be better, right? And let's say these are suboptimal or whatever. But yeah, hopefully you get something out of it, right? I think that's about it. Guys. Sometimes you should be a passenger. Passenger seat gives you new perspective on life, on your life. And yeah, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care.